Hello children, today we will continue with our lecture series on chapter 1, Reproduction in Organisms. Today we will go for the second part of the lecture, that is lecture 2. Vegetative propagation is a type of asexual reproduction which we had already discussed in the first lecture of this series. It's a type of asexual reproduction which takes place specifically in plants. It is a type of asexual reproduction because only one parent is involved. A plant is capable of giving rise to a new offspring without undergoing any fertilization event. Some specific part of the plant, it can be a root, it can be a stem, it can be a leaf or a flowering bud, which will give rise to the entire new plant. Genetically, morphologically, it resembles, that is the offspring resembles the parent, because here there is no mixing of traits of two individuals. The cells of the parent itself will continue. Divide to give rise to the new offspring. Now, what is vegetative propagation? The definition says new plants, it's a process whereby new plants are formed from vegetative parts of the plants. Now, these vegetative parts which can give rise to the new plant, they will be referred to, or they will be called as vegetative propagule. So, vegetative propagule can be the root, can be the stem, can be the leaf, or any part of the plant, single part of the plant. The different types of vegetative propagation based on which structure is behaving as the vegetative propagule. The very common three types are tuber, bulb and rhizome. Tuber, bulb and rhizome. We will see one by one all of them. Now, tuber, which is a type of vegetative propagule, is actually the underground part of the plant, underground stem of the plant, as we see in potatoes. Now, here a picture of potato is given, which we very often come across. Now, the potato, they have certain eyes here. As I am pointing out here, these are the eyes or buds present within this structure, which is the underground stem. Underground stem, they have certain buds upon them, which when comes in contact with damp soil or any damp object, any moisture, if you leave it for quite some time in a moist place, then from these buds, shoots and roots, they start developing. Then if we put them in the soil, if we keep them in the soil, then gradually after few days, few weeks, we will see that these roots, they are fully develop, and then at the same time these potatoes, they start propagating. So this is one type of vegetative propagation. Second type, bulb in onions. Now this is a cutout portion of an onion. Now an onion, they have internally, picture has been shown which is cut out so that I could show you the internal structures here. Now this is the basal region from which roots arise when they come in contact with a damp surface, similar to tuber. From this region some roots will arise and the upper portion will give rise to the shoot. Now some buds are located internally, at the basal region. Some buds, tiny buds are located, which when comes in contact with a moist surface is capable of giving rise to roots and also shoots through the upper portion, that is, which will be phototropic obviously, and the roots will be geotropic. Then gradually, if we leave it in the soil, new buds will start arising in this manner. So that way what will happen? It will go on multiplying. So this is a process of propagation or asexual mode of reproduction, which we prefer to call as vegetative propagation. Now the third type, that is rhizome, which we commonly see in ginger, quite similar to the other two categories. Now rhizome is also actually an underground stem. Now rhizome, they have, that is ginger, turmeric, all such plants. Now the underground part, the underground stem, they have certain buds located in these regions, which I am pointing out with the pointer. When they come in contact with moist surface, as like the other cases, they will start giving rise to the roots as well as the shoots. And if we continue to leave it in the soil, then what will happen? From the basal region again, new rhizome parts will develop. So that way what will happen? They will multiply, retaining the characteristics of the parent part. Now we move on to the other types. We have one type, runner, which is very commonly seen in grasses. Now in grass, what do we see in grass? This is a very common observation. Okay, grass plants, you must have seen that they multiply very rapidly. They cover the entire area very fast if they get proper amount of water. Now what happens is proper amount of water and sunlight. What happens, the grasses, if suppose this is the parent one, the original plant, what will happen? They will grow parallel to the ground for some time, okay, creeping upon the ground. Then they will give out roots. Okay, they will strike roots after a certain interval, certain distance. They will strike roots. Wherever they strike roots, from that portion an upright structure will arise. That is the leaves or the stem. Then after this portion matures, the second portion matures, what will happen? One of the branches or one of the shoots from it will again start creeping parallel to the ground, again strike roots. Strike roots after a certain distance. Wherever they strike root, again they will grow upright. Okay, a branch will arise upright. After some time, when they mature, one part of it will again start growing parallel to the ground. So this way what will happen? They will crawl, something like crawling upon the ground. This type of propagation is called as runner, which we see commonly in grasses. Another type is sucker. Now in sucker is commonly seen in mint plants. In mint plants, somewhat similar to runner, but the difference here is that the main parent, okay, the main parent body, it continues its existence. It continues its existence. It will branch. It will start branching. Then one of the branches, they will grow out, go on striking roots. Okay, continuously they will go on striking roots. After a distance, they will stand erect. Okay, after a distance they will stand erect, produce some leaves. Then from it again one branch, they will start growing parallel. Okay, they will go on, okay, striking roots at different points. Again they will stand erect. As you can see here, this is a mint plant, okay, where the branches have been shown, which are standing erect. So in this manner they will go on propagating. Okay, here the main difference is that here they grow, they go strike root, at that point they will stand erect. In this case what will happen? They will go on striking roots, few branches will stand erect. Again after a certain distance another branch will stand erect. That is sucker, which we see in mint plants. The next is bulbil. Now bulbil is very commonly seen in agave. Okay, agave is a xerophytic plant, spinous plant. Okay, the leaves are very spiny, very pointed. This is a flowering bud. This is actually a flowering bud. Of course, this is not very common. This flowering bud, it grows. The size or the shape, the structure may vary with the species. So these are called as agave plants. The flowering bud will arise, and then after that what will happen? It will drop off. It will drop off and then it will again give rise to a plant. This is the flowering axis of flowering bud, which is known as bulbil, as seen in agave. The next type is offset. It happens in, or it occurs in, aquatic plants like water hyacinth. As we can see here, okay, this is a water hyacinth plant. Now this offset water hyacinth is somewhat similar to sucker or runner. They are similar, but here the difference is they occur only in, they can be seen only in aquatic plants. In this case, what happens, this is the parent plant, the main plant. Now the lower branches, what will happen, they will start growing parallel, okay, they will grow horizontal to the surface of water. To the surface of water, just on the surface of water they will start growing, and after a certain point they will strike roots like structures. Of course, these roots they will never help in anchorage, they just help in floating. So the roots, they will strike roots, and then the stem arises, as we can see in this diagrammatic view. So here this is known as offset. One branch will grow parallel, after a certain distance they will strike roots, and then the shoot region arises. Again, what will happen, the lower portion will again start growing, offshoot will arise, and it will go on propagating in this manner. So these are the different types of vegetative propagation which we commonly see around us. Now we will move on to some other topics, like say we will discuss something little bit about plants as well as in animals. Already we had seen what is lifespan. Lifespan from birth till death of an organism. Now plants we can categorize into three types: annual, biennial and perennial. Now annual plants are those plants which grow, they bear flower, they reproduce within a season. That is every season. Okay, that means seasonally they will keep on occurring. Those are known as annual plants. Biennial, bi-yearly, 2 years. Perennial, which will continue their existence throughout. Of course, seasonally they will produce flowers, they will reproduce, they will give out the seeds, but the plant will not die out. The plant will not die, plant will continue its existence. The mother plant will continue its existence, giving out seeds, fruits every year maybe, or in 2 years maybe, it depends species to species. So these are the three categories of plants, that is how they can reproduce. Animals, accordingly, animals can be seasonal breeders or continuous breeders. Seasonal breeders, that is, which will breed only at a particular season. Okay, they cannot breed throughout the year, only at particular times they will breed. Continuous breeders are the ones which can breed, that means which can reproduce irrespective of the season, irrespective of the time, irrespective of the days. So those are known as continuous breeders. So these are the categories of plants and animals based on how they reproduce. Now coming to animals. Okay, now we have two types: ostrus cycle and menstrual cycle. Now what are these? These are actually the reproductive cycle occurring in the female individuals of such organisms. In non-primates, now what are non-primates? Non-primates are those animals which are not ape-like cow, kitten, cat, dogs, sheep, buffaloes. These are non-primates, non-ape-like, they are not monkey-like. Okay, those are known as non-primates. Now in these animals, what happens is ostrus type of reproductive cycle occurs in the female individuals. In them, cyclic changes during reproduction takes place. Cyclic changes during reproduction means the uterus of the females, they will undergo some changes. Okay, they will undergo some changes within them so as to prepare the body for fertilization and conception, so that they can bear the fetus, and after that accordingly give birth. Now changes occur in their system, like the uterus will undergo changes, they will develop, ovum will be formed, meiotic divisions will complete. So such changes will take place in the female system. The uterine lining will also be formed, so that if fertilization takes place, the young one can be held within the uterus. Within the uterus it can be held. In them, copulation is like it will depend, the mating is occurs in a particular season. The males or the females, they will woo their partners, accordingly copulation will occur. If they meet with the partners, copulation occurs. If fertilization takes place during that specific time, then the fetus will start developing inside the uterus. But if no fertilization occurs, that means only that during that specific time, fertilization has to happen. Suppose it did not happen, they did not meet with a mate, no fertilization occurred, then the uterine lining will not be discarded from the body, but it will be simply reabsorbed into the body. Such a cycle is known as oestrus cycle. Now this oestrus cycle, in some animals it can occur once in 6 months, in some maybe once in 1 year. So it depends again species to species. Now the other type of reproductive cycle in females is known as menstrual cycle. Menstrual cycle is very commonly seen in primates. Primates are all ape-like animals. Ape-like animals, we humans are also included in primates. In them also, the female body undergoes some changes in order to prepare for reproduction. But here, it is not seasonal. They are continuous breeders. So what happens here? The uterus prepares itself for fertilization, and if fertilization happens, then so the young one, the fetus, will start developing inside the uterus. The uterus will go on nourishing the young one. But when fertilization does not occur, then the uterine lining will be discarded. In absence of fertilization, it will be discarded out of the body in the form of menstruation. Menstrual cycle, it occurs in a cyclic manner after a certain number of days. Like in humans, after every 28 days a new cycle starts. So after every within that cycle, fertilization can occur in the female individual. So that is the difference between oestrus cycle and menstrual cycle. Now we'll go to sexuality in organisms. Now, depending upon the presence of male and female structures, reproductive structures, we have two categories of plants or animals. Some plants or animals, they can be referred to as homothelic or monoecious or bisexual or hermaphrodite. All of them mean the same. When the organism has both male and female reproductive structures within the same individual. We cannot differentiate which is male and which is female individual. They have both the structures inside the same body, then such organisms are known as homothelic or maybe monoecious or bisexual or hermaphrodite. Of course, these terms we use depending upon the organism that we are talking about. Homothelic is usually referred to fungi, thallus organisms. Monoecious, bisexual, we refer to plants, also to animals. Hermaphrodite specifically to animals. Now, some examples of hermaphrodite include earthworms. They have both male and female structures within the same individual. Likewise, plants also we have examples like, say, cucurbits. These are some of the examples. Then heterothelic or dioecious or unisexual. Just the opposite of the first category. Here both male and female structures are present in separate individuals. Here we can clearly differentiate which is the male animal and which is the female animal, or which is the male plant and which is the female plant. In plants, an example is papaya, and in animals we see very often we humans are also unisexual. Here males and females are they are separate, they have separate identities. Now here few pictures are given, okay, which is also given, these pictures are present even in your book, okay, to show us which are the some are monoecious, some are dioecious, unisexual, bisexual, just to show the different categories. Now we will move on to the next type of reproduction, sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction involves three major events: pre-fertilization, fertilization, and post-fertilization. All of the three events are equally important. Absence of any one of the events will result into failure of reproduction. As we had already discussed, sexual reproduction involves two parents. There is formation of gametes in the parents. Gametes unite together, and it results into the new individual, that is the zygote. Zygote will grow, it will undergo division, cell division, and then finally result into the new offspring. Now the first event, that is pre-fertilization. Pre-fertilization again has two major events. The first is gametogenesis. Gamete, genesis, origin. That means formation of the gamete. Now what is a gamete? Gamete is a cell produced by plant or animal which is capable of reproducing sexually. Gamete is a cell produced in their body which has half the number of original chromosomes in that particular organism. Now, all sexually reproducing organisms, they have diploid cells in their body. Diploid means two sets of chromosomes are present in their body. They are made up of two sets of chromosomes, which in general we refer to as 2n. We refer to it as 2n, the diploid number, which can vary from individual to individual. We humans, our 2n number is 46. So likewise, all animals and plants, they have their own diploid number. Now, some cells of these organisms, they are capable of undergoing meiosis. They are capable of undergoing meiosis, and they can undergo meiosis and consequently result into cells which we call as haploid cells. Haploid cells which have half the number of chromosomes. Why do they have half the number of chromosomes now? This haploid cell, they are resulting from these meiocytes. Why do they have half the number? Because they have undergone meiosis. And as we all are familiar, meiosis is a type of division which results into reducing the chromosome number into half. So these cells, these new cells, haploid cells that will be formed with half the number of chromosomes will be called as gametes. And it is these gametes which are formed, okay, inside the body of sexually reproducing organisms that will undergo fusion. That process of formation is known as gametogenesis. Now, gametogenesis, if it is occurring in male plants or male part of the plant, it can even occur in bisexual organisms. It will occur in bisexual organisms. So, if it is occurring in the male part of plants, that is known as microsporogenesis, which will result into formation of pollen grain. Pollen grain is a carrier of gametes. It has the male gametes in its body inside the pollen grain. So that process is microsporogenesis. So microsporogenesis is a type of gametogenesis. In animals, it is called as spermatogenesis. That will form the sperm cells. Sperm cells are also haploid cells. They are the gametes, male gametes, which will result from meiocytes. Meiocytes, only few meiocytes will be there, which is capable of undergoing meiosis. Similar event when it results into formation of female gamete in plants will be called as megasporogenesis. In animals results into egg, it will be called as oogenesis. So these are the different types of gametogenesis, which is the first step taking place during sexual reproduction in organisms. Now, microsporogenesis, spermatogenesis, megasporogenesis or oogenesis, all of them essentially has to go through meiosis in the meiocytes. So, we have to very well remember what are meiocytes. Meiocytes are those specialized cells capable of undergoing meiosis to result into gametes. Meiocytes will always have diploid number of chromosomes. The next event in pre-fertilization is gamete transfer. Now, gamete transfer, that is, the gametes have been formed, well and good. During gametogenesis, female gametes, male gametes, they will be formed. But unless and until they fuse together, meet together, there will be no production of the new individual. So, in order that they fuse together, the gametes have to be transferred. They have to be moved. They have to be carried so that fusion occurs. So the next important event in pre-fertilization, gamete transfer. Now these gametes, they can be brought together physically through direct contact. Usually female gametes are stationary, non-motile, male gametes are motile, which will be carried from the male individual to the female individual so that fusion can take place. In plants, it happens through the process of pollination. We all are quite familiar with the word pollination. Pollination can occur through different agencies. Wind may be responsible for carrying or transfer of the pollen grains. Water may be responsible for carrying of pollen grains upon the female part of the plant, or maybe insect, or maybe some animals. So different agencies can be there for pollination. Then, as I mentioned, male gametes are usually motile, female gametes are stationary. So what happens during gamete transfer? The male gametes have to be transferred to the female individual so that they can meet with the female gamete. And this can happen either through physical contact or through some agents. They may be transferred. The next event in sexual reproduction, fertilization. Fertilization essentially involves fusion of gametes. As just now we saw, after formation of gametes, gametes are transferred. Then they have, after when the transfer process is complete, whatever means the organism has taken up, finally when transfer is complete, the fusion of gametes will take place. Now, fusion of gametes, also called as syngamy, is usually between male gamete, which is haploid, and female gamete, which is also haploid. They will result into formation of the zygote, that is 2n. Again, the original chromosome number will be restored or regained. Now, fertilization can occur internally inside the female body. Because the female gamete is stationary, it's still inside the female body. Male gametes, which are motile, will be transferred from the male individual through some agency or maybe through physical contact. The male gamete will be placed inside the female body to fuse with the gamete, the female gamete inside. And such type of fertilization is referred to as internal fertilization. And if the similar process, syngamy, occurs outside. Now, in this case, when can they occur outside? When both the gametes are motile. Even the female gamete will be released into the external environment. Male gamete will be released into external environment, and then fusion will occur. Now for external fertilization to be successful, few points have to be taken care of, or some adaptations are taken up. Large number of gametes are produced, both male and female, large number of gametes are produced. There should be synchrony in the release of gametes. Now why large number of gametes should be produced? To prevent the chances of losing or destruction of all the gametes. That means when the gametes are released into the environment, predators are there. Predators, they may attack the gametes, they may feed upon the gametes, that will result in the loss of gametes. So that at least few of them are left behind, they are protected, so large number of gametes are produced to increase the chances of fertilization. Then there has to be synchrony in the release of gametes. That means when the gametes are released, it should be at the same time. The gamete release should be at the same time. Same time means, suppose the male gamete matured and it got released. Female not yet matured, so not released. So what will happen? The male gametes will go waste. So they have to be released at such a time when both of them have matured. There should be synchrony in the release of both male and female gametes. Why these two adaptations? To increase the chances of fertilization. It is very commonly seen in fishes and frogs, where the medium is water. Then parthenogenesis. Parthenogenesis is a special type of reproduction in which there is no fusion of gametes. There is no fusion or fertilization of gametes. This is an exception here. The offsprings will be formed without fertilization of the gametes. The organism, which we will call as female, okay, the female, the egg, it will directly, the diploid egg, the egg does not undergo meiosis here. The egg is not formed after meiosis. Simply mitotic division will take place in some cell, which we will call as the egg, and it will directly develop into the new offspring. Quite similar to like vegetative propagation as we saw in plants. So in animals, if it happens, it is called as parthenogenesis. Here no male members, obviously no male members, because there is no requirement of fertilization. So always whatever organism is formed, they can develop into new offspring. So as females are associated with giving birth, so we refer to those individuals as female members only. Some examples are, it occurs in lizards, in turkey, and parthenogenesis can also be seen in honeybee. But of course honeybee 100% it doesn't go for parthenogenesis. So the male drones in honeybee, they are produced through parthenogenesis. Now the last event of sexual reproduction, post-fertilization, which is also called as embryogenesis. Embryogenesis means development of the embryo. Now here, post-fertilization event, now zygote was formed as a result of syngamy, which we saw in the previous slide. So zygote will develop into embryo, it will divide, undergo mitotic divisions and develop into embryo. Embryo will further undergo differentiation and form the new offspring. The main type of cell division involved is mitosis and followed by cell differentiation. Now mitotic division. Mitotic division is responsible for the zygote to develop into embryo. The zygote, which is formed by fusion of two haploid cells, is the diploid single cell present inside the mother's body, female body, whether we talk of a plant or an animal. This single cell will now start undergoing mitotic division. First it will form 2 cells, 4 cells, 8 cells, 16 cells. Every time it will simply double and form a mass of cell initially. That will again undergo differentiation. Those cells will undergo differentiation. They will modify to form, to develop into new organs or structures, which we will start calling as the embryo. More and more differentiation of the cells will finally result into the new offspring who will be similar to the parent. So these are the post-fertilization events. So that is about sexual reproduction in organisms. So these are the events which we are to discuss in this first chapter, reproduction in organisms. Reproduction, which the process mainly of two types, asexual, sexual. Asexual, different types we saw in the microorganisms, different types of spores were formed in plants, vegetative propagules are formed, then sexual reproduction, formation, fusion of gametes, fusion of gametes, which ultimately result into formation of zygote, embryo and a new offspring. Now again in animals again, depending upon how the young one develops, new offspring develops, we have two categories, oviparous and viviparous. Oviparous are those animals which lays egg. Here egg, when I say, this is the fertilized egg that I am talking about. That is, the zygote is formed inside the body, but the zygote will no more develop inside the body of the female. It will be given out in the form of an egg, just as we see in birds. The egg, fertilized egg rather, the fertilized egg will be incubated. The mother will incubate it, provide it the proper temperature, and finally what will happen, the eggs will hatch out, giving the new offspring. This is a very common observation we see in birds and reptiles. Whereas the higher organisms, they go for vivipary. Vivipary is when the zygote embryo will develop inside the mother's body, and finally once fully developed, the new offspring will be given out of the body, giving birth, what we call as giving birth, as in humans we see it. So that such a phenomenon is known as viviparous or vivipary.